So we have something new to learn, or probably we have something to revise. Probably we are a student and we have some material to revise. Exam is coming up. We have to learn something new. We're doing a course. Probably it's a short course. Maybe it's a course that will take us over many semesters or many quarters, and we have to do some focus work. We have to settle down. We have to maybe get ready to complete a project so that we can turn that project in the not too distant future. Or probably we have some quizzes coming up, some tests coming up, and we just have to study for it. Or possibly we have gotten a new job and we are qualified. We went to school, we have our certifications and so forth. But this new job requires us to develop on a specific skill set, and we have to really maybe go through these manuals to learn, or probably look at these series of videos and make some notes so that we will know exactly how to perform on the specific task. Or possibly we may have gotten a promotion in the job. So at one time we probably were in junior staff, but now we are in middle management, or probably we were in middle management before, but we are now in an upper level, or we are senior now, and it requires us to learn something new. That in itself can be at times a little challenging for some persons. Now, it's true that there are persons who love to study and they love to organize and get things done and strategize and so forth, set goals, work towards those milestones and so forth. But there are some persons who are not able to do that adequately. So, what can happen is that we know we have to complete a task or a project. We know we have a class to complete some homework for. We know we have a quiz or an exam coming up. We know that. So that's not new for us. But the thing is, it could become a little daunting, a little painful, a little challenging for us, especially when so many different things are vying for our attention. Also, to our motivation level, especially if we don't have a system put in place. We may have a timetable, but the timetable may also not be realistic. So we don't have a timetable or unrealistic one. Systems may or may not be put in place, and we just seeing time ticking away, and we have not completed what we were planning to do. And throw into the mix is the fact that we now recognize that we feel a little helpless or powerless, and we then give in to procrastination. Now, sometimes we try to justify and say, no, 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 it's not procrastination. What it is, it's actually relaxation. So we try to do that. Sometimes it can be relaxation. We do need to relax, we need entertainment, we need to unwind at times. But it may actually be that we are procrastinating. So, how do we treat with the fact that we have something to do, and we may be spending a little more time on social media or a little more time on our cell phones, looking at videos, looking at just scrolling through, or probably we may not necessarily be on social media or scrolling through, but what we may be doing is we may be avoiding the task by maybe going out. So we going out for dinner, and again, nothing is wrong in going out for dinner, but we are going out when we know we probably should be focusing on maybe doing some revision or preparing for a quiz or preparing for an exam or going through these manuals so that we'll be able to better function in our job or in the workplace. So how can we treat with procrastination? Well, first of all, we have to recognize that we are procrastinating. So once we recognize that, and it doesn't require us to sit down and do any deep focus to recognize that we're basically wasting time that could be best spent on something else. But we have to really sit down and say, okay, what do I need to get done? And it could be a whole host of things, but we then ask ourselves, what is urgent? And if we recognize what is urgent or what is important, it must get done probably within a time period. Maybe it could be a day, a week, or maybe a month. We have to get this done, and time is ticking away. Okay, so that is probably what you might categorize as important or maybe urgent. What steps do you have? Do you have any steps? Okay, so I don't have any steps. All right, so could that be I know it's urgent, but there's no steps to achieve that particular goal. So what do I do? Well, I need to kind of set some steps and small steps, not any. Okay, so I need to write mathematics exam in a couple of weeks, or I need to finish this thesis in at the end of 3 months. So, okay, I'm just going to write. You may catch yourself or just find out that you're not really strategically doing it, at least properly. What do I mean? I mean that you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm just going to write, but how many hours in a day you're going to write? Uh, when are you going to write? Is it morning or evening? When are you going to study? Is it in the night or is it in the afternoon? When exactly are you going to study? Or is it that you'll be breaking it up and taking piece of time, maybe during the lunchtime, you write or you study a little bit, probably at night times, you maybe do a 2 hours. You have to be clear in your mind as to how you're planning to achieve this particular goal at the end. So, yes, that is the goal, but you don't just focus on the goal, focus on the little pieces that you have to do in order to make that a reality. So, you probably want to write that down somewhere and then look at it and see, is it reasonable? Is it possible that I can do this and actually get to my goal or complete the task at the end? Now, sometimes we may set timetables. It's good to set timetables. What we sometimes do not do in setting timetables is that we just put things we think that we have to do. So we have to study English or maths or history. So we put that down, studying for an hour. We put that down, and then we might catch ourselves realizing on the day we had to study, we actually had a project. So we have to now forget about the studying and get the project done. Or we may recognize that when we put down time to study, it's normally time that we go for dinner with somebody or we do exercise. But probably that's the time that we will go to class, or maybe that's the time we'll go to work. And then we recognize, okay, so this timetable is not realistic. So we therefore have to make some adjustments or some changes. But what we often do not put in timetables, and this is what I find when I talk to persons about, have you made a timetable? And they say yes. And I look at the timetable and I say, okay, where in that timetable do you have for fun activities? I understand you play a musical instrument. Where in that timetable you playing the musical instrument? I'm not seeing it there. Or maybe I may ask them the question like, okay, so I understand that you need to sleep, but for some reason I'm not seeing sleep in your timetable. Okay, so I know that you normally go to class, but I'm not seeing class in your timetable. Or I may even say to them, okay, I notice that your timetable looks like it's recurring week after week. You have been trying this for about a month. How is it working? And then they may say to me, well, it really isn't working, because I tried it the first day and it kind of worked, but after that, it just went through the window because I always catch myself doing something else. Now, the reality is um, that will happen. I heard one researcher made a point, and it was a good point he made. He said that our timetables could change every week. So one week, what we will do between the hours of this, let's say 8 to 10 a.m. in the morning on this week, can change the following week. And then between 8 to 10 the following week, we're doing something else on a specific day. So that could happen. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes what we try to do, and it has happened to me a few times as well, we try to fit in a mold what we think should be happening every single week. But in reality, that's not how it works. A good way to actually set a timetable that can prevent us from procrastinating is to plan what we are currently doing, or at least put down what we are currently doing. And when we put down what we are currently doing on paper, we get to see, okay, this is what I actually do. So the new way of behaving, because when you set a timetable, that's what you're doing. You're creating a new way of behaving, or at least you're perceiving going forward, this is how I'm going to behave. So I'm going to sit down here at a specific time. So you put down what you're currently doing and you look at that as a timetable. So you could even chart it for the week. You go through the week and you put down what you do and so forth. And then the following week, you look at it and see, is it reasonable? Could I do that? Could I work with that? Or you may recognize that after chatting for the week, you have a lot of time. It may be free time, or it may be time that you spend doing an activity that when you think about it, you probably can cut down the length of time you work on the activity. And it could simply be that, well, you had that time, so you just expand the activity to fit that time. But the following week, after doing this analysis, you recognize, okay, maybe I could compress it a little bit and do this activity for less time. So that is also a possibility. So you're getting the sense that you can make a timetable, and that will help you to reduce procrastination. You can pay attention to the times that you spend on social media and doing other activities to distract yourself or to run away from the actual activity that you have to get done. And now I want to give you another strategy to help you with reduce procrastination. This has to do with, and you can probably just get a piece of paper. So let's say, for example, you get a piece of paper like this, and on this piece of paper, you can actually put um, every time you get distracted. So let's say you have a piece of paper, and every time you get distracted, you put an X on it. So today, whatever day it is when you're looking at this video, you put an X. Okay, you're working on a task, so you're studying something, you studying it, and then you got distracted. You put an X. So let's say you're working on revision, and you're working on a revision for, let's say, 2 hours. So you're using the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes, take a break, 25 minutes, take a break, and so forth. And every time you get distracted and you raise up your head and you realize you were daydreaming during the period of time you should be focusing, as opposed to the time when you are relaxing. When you're relaxing, you could daydream, that's fine. But when you are focusing and you get distracted, you put an X. You look at that for the day, you count up how many you had for the day, you do a little calculation and you say, okay, I had 5 distractions for this study period, this 2 hour study period, because I have 5x, right? So the next day, you can also do this. You should do the same thing, because remember, you're charting to see when you get distracted. So let's say the next day you sit down to study, and it can be the same or it can be or a different subject. It really doesn't matter at this point, right? You're just checking to see if your focus is changing. Obviously, you may recognize that you don't particularly like a subject, and you recognize that when you're doing that subject, you are more likely to get distracted. But even not liking a subject doesn't mean that getting distracted is okay, because the subject may have a quiz, a project, or an exam that you have to get done. And not liking it, you still have to pass the exam, you still have to turn in the project, right? So you're charting to see your focus. So the following day, put your X, you realize, okay, when I count it up, I have about 8 this time. So you have a little bit more. You probably do it the next day. When you count it up, you realize you have about 7. What you can do at that time, especially if you're studying different subject matter and so forth, what you can do is that you can reduce the time that you're focusing for. So let's say you were focusing for 25 minutes, reduce it to about 15 minutes. And for over a course of 3 days, see if you have less X on the paper. Now, if it is, you have less X on the paper, then maybe your focus has to be done over a shorter period of time. If it is, you have just about the same amount, or the same number rather, of X on the paper, then it means that you may have to change maybe the location where you study. Because sometimes the location could be very distracting. You sit down by a window, you're looking through the window, cars passing, they honking their horns. Maybe you and your neighbor they talking loudly or something like that. Or you may have to change where you actually study. Maybe you may have to study in a library, or maybe early in the morning, or probably late at night. So that may actually help you with your focus. And once you recognize that maybe that is the issue, the location, then check to see if you're getting less X on the paper. And that will help you to kind of rationalize in your mind if the change in the environment is what you needed. And of course, once you are focusing more on a specific task, then you are less likely to procrastinate, right? Because you kind of start enjoying the work that you're doing, even if you may not necessarily be fully enjoying the work that you're doing, because you just have to do it maybe to pass this course, or maybe to get a promotion to actually do what you really like, or probably it is a quiz or something like that. You don't like everything about it, but you need to do these tasks in order to be evaluated and to move on or move up, as the case may be. So it's really important for us to reduce distraction when we have to focus on a specific task. And in doing so, just to recap a few key ways that we can reduce distraction and therefore reduce procrastination. We want to remove ourselves from things that like social media and the phone, the tablet, maybe take it and put it aside. Or maybe switch the internet off if we have to use the device to actually study. We can also have a piece of paper where we can put an X every time we daydream or we lose our focus, and then count that up and see if it is that it's increasing or decreasing. Sometimes just the whole idea of putting the X says to us, you had 8 of those X yesterday. So let's see if we can cut it down. And just the sheer thought of not going over 8 can help you to cut down and to increase your focus. And of course, you also want to probably look at the environment that you are working in, and the environment you have to focus in, and see if that is not also contributing to the distraction, because it could. Now, it's true that sometimes you might be in an environment, maybe in a house, you're focusing on maybe something for an exam, and there are a lot of people in the house. You can't necessarily tell them to leave and to go somewhere else, but you can probably see if you can close the door if you have one, or you probably can put headphones on with some um, music, something that calming and relaxing so you can focus. Or you probably can get these noise cancelling headset, right? And experiment with that and see if it could work. Or you may have to just talk to the people who are contributing to the noise and say, hey, you know what, I really want to pass this exam. I want to study for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours. Could you allow me by reducing the noise level? So some of that could be done to see if your focus could increase, and as a result, you are less likely to procrastinate, because you procrastinate because of losing focus. And when you lose focus, you don't get the task done or the job done. So I hope that this was informative. You can like, subscribe, and you can put comments as you like. It was nice talking to you again. Take care. All the best.